Hi, I'm Terry Kyle, the co-founder and CEO of WPX.net, the fastest WordPress hosting service by the only independent test on the web this year by Kevin Ohashi. I'll leave a link to that below this video. Joining me today is a creative powerhouse, Nick Gray. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I actually heard Nick on the My First Million podcast at some point in the past, which is one of my favorite podcasts. And what I love about Nick, when you look through his resume, the guy is a creative powerhouse, but it's not just in one area. Like, he is an author, we're going to talk a bit more about that book. He's had a hosting company. He's been involved in an aviation-based business with his family. So basically, you can't stop this guy, even if you try. And he's just creating constantly. So it's a huge pleasure to talk to Nick today. Nick, welcome. Welcome to the podcast, the video recording. And can you just give the people watching this a brief bio on your extraordinary life so far?
Yes, I will, and I'm happy to be here. You left out the most important part, that I'm also a WPX customer. I am a happy customer, and I'm hosting the website for my book and several other websites on WPX.
Awesome.
And this is, nobody asked me to say this, but the support on WPX is absolutely incredible. I've never been a customer somewhere where I get a faster response time in the live chat. And Terry could maybe speak about that or how he does it later. It's crazy.
Yep. Great to hear. Thank you, Nick.
So a little bit about me.
Yeah.
I started a company called Museum Hack. I think that's what I was most famous for on the internet before this. And we did renegade museum tours at the biggest museums in America, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Getty in Los Angeles, the National Gallery in DC. And what was special was we hired people like Broadway singers and stand-up comedians and science teachers to be the tour guides. They were the tour guides that took you on this incredible experience. It was a live experience, not scalable. And that, I think what's interesting to your listeners and viewers, came out of a hobby project. I never planned to make it into a business. And then I started as a business, and I was able to quit my job and work on that full time. So that's a little bit about me.
Right, brilliant. Many years ago, Nick, I went to what is called a Jewish museum in Sydney. It was part of a master's in teaching I was doing at the time. And the people were actually the best exhibit. So these were people who had actually survived the concentration camps in Nazi Germany, and you could ask them anything. It was a phenomenal experience. Wow. And I think what you did there with the museum hack stuff, you kind of reinvented the museum experience.
Yeah.
The old way of doing it was kind of broken and somewhat boring for too many people.
Yes.
And you found a great way to get them to re-engage with it.
That's what we tried to do, was to attract the millennial-minded people, people that are on their phones, that are digitally saturated, who frankly don't care about the narrative arc of art history and how modernism connects with this and that. They just want to see cool stuff. For many people, they go to these museums exactly one time, and they do it because they think they have to go. And we want to give them the best tour, and we want to show them the highlights and the lowlights. One example is we would talk about how much some of the paintings cost. Very controversial idea to talk about the money for these fine art objects. But for a lot of people, that was the engagement that they needed to snap out, to say, wow, this painting is $200 million. Why is it? Why? And so so we do these little engagement things to get people to care about the art.
Yeah, amazing. I think when I was in the Louvre in Paris many years ago, and you go through monstrous queues to actually get to the famous stuff, and you get to the Mona Lisa eventually. And I think from memory, you go through this experience, you look at the painting, and then you're told at some point that's actually a copy. The real one's in the basement because it's too valuable to put on display. It's a copy. So little things like that, make the experience more interesting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Nick, because you've got quite a resume, if we go through a bit chronologically, at one point you did a lot of stuff as a kid, but then you also had your own hosting company. So tell us a little bit about that and what you think, what's hard about it, what's good about it, and how you moved on from that.
So I was making web pages way back in the day, maybe 1995, 1996.
The
And
web
as I
looked
was
a little
making
bit,
those
Nick, the web looked a little bit different back then.
the web looked a lot different. The
Oh,
web
yeah.
looked a lot different.
Yeah.
And in 97, I think I was signing up for web hosting for all the clients that I was making these pages for. And I just realized, they had a reseller program. It was a company called Pair Networks, Pair. And Pair Networks had a reseller program, and I just signed up as a reseller, and I would buy the server space in bulk and sell it to my people. But something happened. I got very lucky on a fluke. I didn't even know about search engine optimization. It wasn't an industry.
Right.
But I happened to rank for the phrase cheap web hosting. My plans were $14.95 a month. And for a period of time, I was getting tons of new clients, which was very weird. As a high schooler, I could barely drive, and I'm getting all of these web clients. It was interesting.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. And then later with Museum Hack, Nick, you mentioned it was just kind of a crazy side project or a hobby or something, but then it kind of blew up and became a much bigger thing. Do you recall the original moment you kind of had the idea for that and you thought, oh my God, this is broken and needs fixing?
So I was leading my friends around the museum. When people would come visit New York City, I would take them to this Metropolitan Museum of Art and just show them like 10 cool things I found and 3 things that I want to steal. So it became a thing amongst my friends, like, oh, you got to go on Nick's tour. And I just did it for fun because I loved it. Yeah. And then one weekend, a blog wrote about it, a very famous blog in New York City that was called Daily Candy. Okay. And they wrote about it and said it was the best thing to do in New York City. And literally overnight, 1,300 people emailed me, which was a lot of people at the time, all wanting to go on this tour. I woke up and it was just overflowing. And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is like way bigger than just me and my friends. I need to do something here.
Cool. And did that kind of become your full-time thing for a while?
Well, I worked on it on nights and weekends. And for those that are listening to this that are thinking of starting their own business, not everybody has the luxury. I'm a single guy. I don't have kids, but I do have extra time. And so nights and weekends, I was working on this all the time as my side project, my side hustle. And it really wasn't until I was saving up money, and it really wasn't until I had so much work that I could leave what was then my job. I didn't leave and suddenly show up to the desk and say, well, what am I going to do now today? How am I going to make a business? I was working on this nights and weekends for probably a year or two on the side until I really left and worked on it full time.
Cool. What was the main thrill of that work, Nick?
I love taking people to the museum.
Yep. Okay.
What? Sorry?
Yeah, so the really kind of thrilling part for you of that work, what was that?
Yeah.
Was it the involvement with people, seeing their perspective change?
Yeah, I think the most thrilling thing for me was being able to take people and show them around for the first time. It's that getting to see someone's beginner eyes and seeing them like unlock, like, wow, the sense of excitement seeing something for the first time. Because these museums have some incredible pieces. And when I could explain to them little secrets or take them into hidden rooms, seeing that excitement from them was really special.
Right. Are you still involved with Museum Hack today, Nick?
I sold the company in 2019 in a unique seller finance transaction. They've done really well, and so I'm no longer involved at all.
Okay. Yeah. And I know, again, from the My First Million podcast, there are other kind of museum spin-offs now. Like I think in the States, there's the Ice Cream Museum and a few other ones that make it a much more immersive experience.
Yes. I think that we were at a unique time. When I started Museum Hack, 2011, 2012, 2013, It was a change that I just happened to be in the right place at the right time
Yeah.
of new audiences coming to these cultural institutions to learn. And yeah, it was nice. I got lucky.
Awesome. It's all about the timing. So, Nick, let's move on to your book now. When you just have written the one book so far, is that correct?
Yes, I just wrote one book so far. I wouldn't wish writing a book on my worst enemy. I just did one. I think that's it.
Yeah. So you decided not to write a science fiction book or a romance book or a Western, anything like that. Can you tell us a bit about the book and how that came about?
For those that are listening, I'm going to tell you about my book that is going to teach you how to make more friends, build big relationships that can help you, that helped me launch my business. What would your life be like if you had a huge network that was rich, that was ready to support you for your business when you launched it? And that's what I did when I launched Museum Hack. I have a business that's called the 2-Hour Cocktail Party, and it's very weird, just like my last company, just like me. It teaches you how to host a party for your friends, your neighbors, your work colleagues, a well-run party. And we use that phrase cocktail party because it encapsulates an easy social experience that doesn't have a lot of commitment. Someone like Terry is very busy. If you invite Terry to a dinner party, you know, he might be a little busy. He might be wondering, who are you? But if you invite him to a cocktail party, he can say, well, I can just pop into that. Sure, that sounds fun. I'll meet some interesting people. And it's not about the alcohol, by the way. I don't even drink alcohol myself. But it's about bringing people together, 15 to 20 people over 2 hours only. That's something special about it.
Yep.
And so I wrote this book, and it's like a workbook. There's checklists and the exact scripts and how to invite people, a minute-by-minute play-by of what you do.
That's amazing. And as I was saying to one of the guys here before our call now, not long ago, I came across this statistic that something like 50% or more of people over 30 now live alone and will live alone for the rest of their life. And this is an increasing trend we're seeing with kind of social isolation. So I think a blueprint like yours is a great antidote to that problem.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Most adults have not made a new friend over the past 3 years. And the last few years have certainly not helped that. But that feeling of isolation and loneliness, I read somewhere that said that most adult men, not most, 15% of American men say that they don't even have one close friend. And for most people, as we get older, it's harder to make new friends.
Yeah.
And it becomes a game of attrition. People move, they get married, they have kids, stuff happens, and we just have less and less friends.
Yeah.
And why is this important? Because if you're listening to this, you're thinking about starting a business, you're thinking about launching a creative project. You need that network of friends, not only to help you, let's not even say about personal life, but from a business perspective, they're going to be your supporters, your cheerleaders. They can help you find new clients. So that was huge for me.
Yep. And my personal belief is that in business, people want to do business with other people, not giant faceless corporations. So they're much more drawn to like the craftsman type guy on the main street, I guess, rather than Walmart or whatever.
Yes, I like that. It's the personal connection.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. And I think obviously, you know, smartphones now are kind of separating us even more. And you go everywhere, parks, restaurants, and people who are eating together all on their phones, kind of scrolling during the meal and this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's bad. Has that helped you? Did you make a decision to say, hey, when I launch WPX, I'm going to keep my personal website up. I'm going to be attached to this brand. I'm going to be the face of this company?
Yeah, I have my own view about business, which is if you're an independent, which we are, we're a completely bootstrapped company, that your business actually is an expression of you as a person. It's about your values, your style that you like, the way that you want to do business, the culture you want to create, the relationships with your staff and customers and things like that. And if you can't do those things with your own business, what's the point of having your own business? if you can't express yourself. So we have always kind of tried to be personal. I'm the obvious sort of figurehead of the company. Mostly that's a positive thing. There are tiny negatives with that, of course, like anything. That's okay. I completely accept that. But a lot of people love our mission with the dogs, for example. And what we've done there is we didn't just hand off responsibility to somebody else through a donation because we could see the whole system was broken here. We actually created our own sanctuary with a completely different philosophy, which is much, much better for the dogs, makes them more adoptable, friendlier, happier, all of that. So we wouldn't do it a different way. Some people might be turned off by that. Cat people, for example, might not like that we're involved with dogs. Though actually I have 10 cats at home, 10 rescue cats at home. My wife's a cat lady. We have 3 dogs and 10 cats at home. Currently 136 dogs in the sanctuary, and there are more coming, getting rehomed all the time. And I just view all of this work, I think all of this stuff, like with creative projects, it's all part of the same creative spectrum. So whether you create a film, which I've done, written books, which I have done, though it's hard, create a hosting company, a dog sanctuary, they're all creative projects. They're part of kind of just the same creative spectrum. I don't see any separation so much.
So I love that you took the same entrepreneurial gusto to creating the sanctuary. You said on one hand, look, web hosting is broken. We're going to be bootstrapped and independent. We're going to be focused on the customer's needs first and foremost.
Yeah.
And you said the same thing with the dogs. You said, hey, the way that it's being done right now is broken. There's a lot there about people, these creative forces that see something that's broken and we kind of just have to fix it.
Yeah. I actually feel it physically when I see something broken I want to fix. I actually feel it physically in my body. It bugs me. And I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but I still want to get in there and fix it because I see, and I suspect you're the same, you just see what needs doing in that situation, in that context. So, Nick.
We're the ones that make the world. Sorry.
And actually, because we have a new auditorium here, we've just kind of renovated an area next to our office. And something we will start doing in January is we're going to bring local high school kids here. And once a month, I'll give them a 1-hour keynote lecture on entrepreneurship. Because I think actually when you're an entrepreneurial creative type, it's easy to feel alone and isolated and disempowered because you don't necessarily have many like you around you. And I know when I was a kid, I was just told to shut up and stop being annoying because I'm asking all these questions and saying, why can't we do this? And why is that the way it is? And all of that. When I'm like 7 years old, just annoying people endlessly. And I know I would have loved meeting other entrepreneurs and creators, even not like financially, just in terms of change, being a change agent, just driving interesting creative projects. Like your museum thing, you don't go into it thinking I'm going to make a fortune from this. It's just a cool project that'll be great to do. So that's just one of the ways. There's nothing in it for WPX, but I just think it's a great project that I want to do. Now that we have that space, we'll do it every month for high school kids here.
Wow. Okay, controversial question for you. Controversial question.
Fire away.
What is your opinion on university? Should the high school kids go to university, what we call college here?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on college university?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this because I actually have 2 degrees. So I've got a bachelor and a master's of teaching. The first one was pretty useful and valuable, but the university had no prestige, so it was useless for getting work. The second one was a terrible course from a prestigious university, which was very useful for getting work. But I think that was a bit from a different era. I mean, I'm old enough to remember a time when there were black and white TVs, no internet, no smartphones, all of that. Even fax machines were a new thing a long time ago to me. I think in today's environment, with a number of factors that have kind of converged, like the pandemic, remote work, the Great Resignation, and now we have this quiet quitting thing and all of that. I think everything is now up for renegotiation, and people are really evaluating exactly how they want to spend their life. They don't want to take on that college debt, which can be immense and set you back financially many years. And most companies now are kind of looking for results and outcome and skills, not a college degree. I think the one kind of unintended good outcome from a degree is it tends to make you think a bit more long term. Like if you have to go to university or college for 3 years or 4 years, you develop more patience in seeing something through. And I think that's very valuable. But the actual content, the actual piece of paper, I think year by year gets less relevant. The requirement for that debt is unnecessary. And I think people need to be taught much more kind of independent, critical thinking about exactly what they want to do, the outcomes they want, where they want to live. You move cities, for example. So I think we can actually take much more responsibility back for us and more like become the architect of our own lives rather than following those kind of very old-fashioned career paths.
One thing I've thought about or that I've been attracted to, is it more common there in Europe maybe for the kids to take a gap year where they get the year between?
Yeah, in the
seems
UK,
like a
yes.
great place.
Yeah, in the UK, yes. Other parts of Europe, not so much.
Yeah. I think a gap year is really interesting because when I went right to college, I have to admit, I was very young and I did not know about adult things. And I admit that sometimes in school I would choose the easiest professor just so I could get the grade instead of the best professor.
Right.
And oh my gosh, I feel like such an idiot now for doing that.
But that's the game, isn't it? That's how the game is set up to get the good grades. Therefore,
Exactly.
we're validated as people, we got the good grades, we got the tick, we can move on to the next thing.
Yep, exactly. It's a game.
Yeah. So, Nick, I'm interested in your thoughts and experiences on your journey as a person, as an entrepreneur, the challenges, the learnings, the big aha moments, the things that you really now realize, you think, oh my God, like, why didn't I understand that 10 or 15 years ago? What are some of those, if you'd share them?
Well, we were talking a little bit about how lonely people can be as adults. Well, I think it's even more lonely as a business owner and as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And as a creative person trying to strike it out on your own. That can be an incredibly lonely journey. And one thing that has been so helpful for me is those friends and that network that I've built or a peer group. People who either have been there, done that, which I know is not always easy to find, or people that are along the journey as well. And I'll give you one example. When I was redesigning my website, I happened to meet somebody. His name was Adam, and he was redesigning his website at the same time.
Right.
Our businesses were roughly similar. His was larger than mine. But we became fast friends because we both were hiring contractors and thinking about website copy. And that was such a valuable, he's still one of my best friends today, but we originally connected on that journey, those challenges, those things. And so that, man, just all along the way, I'm thankful for my friends and those relationships I've built.
Yeah. I think it's easier now. There are a lot more mechanisms for that. You see a lot of, I think I saw a stat, there are now something like 10 million plus Facebook groups. So on all kinds of, there is even a Facebook group for sarcasm. I'm not joking, it's huge. It has like 650,000 people in it. Whatever your particular thing that floats your boat, you can find a community somewhere for that. That's very different, from when I was growing up. So I think that's easier now. What about, did you actually have people discouraging you earlier on and saying, Nick, you're crazy, man, that's too risky. What are you doing? That's nuts, stop it.
So when I started Museum Hack, which was museum tours, I was the tour guide. It was a live experience. So what was the tour like? It was a 2-hour experience where you'd show up and I would run you around the museum. I say run because we saw a lot of different things. Well, when I hired my first tour guides, to put them in charge, to bring them, to have other people go and lead these groups around the museums. I did have a very successful multimillionaire friend of mine who said, with all due respect, you're crazy. The whole business, it's you. You are the tour guide. People come for you. Why would we ever want to go? No offense, but like, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
And that was hard to hear, right? But I knew that to grow my business, I had to stop working in the business and I had to work on the business.
Yeah.
And hiring tour guides was the first part of that.
Sure.
So that wasn't easy.
Yep. Okay. It seems like you have a lot of performance energy, almost like a stand-up, Nick. Have you done some performance stuff as well?
Being a tour guide, I've led hundreds, if not thousands, of museum tours, and
Yep.
especially in these art history places that are so boring, you kind of have to go into a stand. A funny story about that is that idea, which you probably get asked this too as a business owner. Oh, why did you start WPX? Do people ask you that?
They do.
And it's a question that we probably get asked as business owners a lot. And I would have, because I've answered this question tens of hundreds of times, I would go into a script, this very performative nature of answering that question, because it's hard to do that every time for all these people. And
Yeah.
when I was dating, it was very off-putting for a date. I would get this feedback that they would ask me things and I would switch into performative mode when I would answer that question.
Yeah.
And it was very weird and very jarring. I did a little bit of theater in college. I was in a comedy troupe.
Okay.
But I've never really done theater, like real theater or stand-up or anything like that.
Okay.
Stand-up comedy sounds terrifying to me.
Seems like a natural fit for you. Interesting. So, Nick, if you had some one piece of advice to give yourself when you were much younger, like at a pivotal time in your life, that you know now, what advice would you give to yourself earlier? And I'm going to share mine in a minute.
Okay. I am now at the stage in my life, I think everybody as they get older thinks about trying to stay younger. And I know that I lived a very unhealthy life, and it's hard, but I would let my sleep fall off. Now there's a lot more, at least in America, the legalization of marijuana. And I think that I would tell my younger self to smoke less marijuana.
Okay.
I would tell my younger self to live a healthier life.
Okay.
And to think about the long term a little bit more. It's hard. It's hard to say that. I don't know if I would have listened.
Yeah. It's a case of young Nick needs to look after older Nick later with some better choices.
Yes.
For what it's worth, my advice on this question is I would say to myself to be far more ambitious and be bolder. You're not a powerless victim. Think way bigger. If the downside is not life-changing in a bad way, just go for it like mad and just put that accelerator all the way to the floor. Because I think we talk ourselves out of far too much. And I think, when you're in your 20s, who cares what crazy stuff you do, provided you don't kill somebody or go to jail or something like that. You've got to really go for it. And later on, it's harder. You might have responsibilities, family, financial commitments, mortgages, or whatever. So I think my general advice, and actually this is to entrepreneurs generally and will be for those high school kids as well, their parents might be horrified by them hearing this. We'll see how it goes. I'll report back. But I think just you are the architect. You're not a powerless victim. Be ambitious. Just try crazy stuff. Just get out there and do it. If you can think of it, just try it and do it. And you'll be amazed at what comes out. It's often those the long tail little things that blow up huge, like your museum hack thing. Not necessarily you thought, this is going to be the best thing, and it turns out something quite different. Yep.
I read a quote from an entrepreneur. It was a tweet that he said. He said, some of the best technical ideas and innovations could have been invented 100 years ago.
Wow.
Now, obviously today, they didn't have computers back then or things like that. But there are some things that 100 years ago could have been invented but for the idea.
Yeah.
Right? What are those ideas today that could just completely leapfrog? I mean, there are ideas out there that can create and turn you into a generational force that can literally change the history of the world. And as creative people, I think that's why we really have the power to truly, it sounds cheesy, but to truly change the world.
Yeah. I have one concept like that I'm executing in my own life very, very briefly. So when it comes to money and investment, people tend to talk about the short game or the long game. So the short game is get rich quick, crypto, all this kind of scammy stuff. Long game is buy a house, it appreciates for 50 years, and then you're financially set. And actually, I think there's another game, which is the longest game. And this is with my own kind of financial and investment affairs. I'm setting up for my post-death game, which is that financially my dog foundation will be supported forever, the work of that foundation. So hopefully, if the world doesn't blow up, 50 years, 100 years and beyond after I'm gone, my dog foundation will still be able to and fully funded to keep doing work basically forever. So that I think is an interesting investment concept.
That's great. I like that idea, thinking about post-death. A friend of mine knows he worked back from the actuarial tables and he figured out his death date, when he's statistically likely to die.
Wow.
And he's planned the rest of his life leading up, saying, okay, look, if that's when I'm going to die, what do I want to accomplish? What are my thoughts leading up to that?
Exactly. To me, it's all about the impact that you have, the positive impact. And even I'm not concerned with legacy tied to me personally by name, as long as the impactful work continues. That's what really matters. Yep.
Nice.
So here comes our tough mystery bonus question, Nick. If Netflix are making a movie, if Netflix are making a movie about your life, which actor do you want to play you?
Wow. There's an actor here that's based in Texas. His name is Matthew McConaughey.
I know him.
And
Did you read his book Greenlight?
I did read it, and I actually listened to it. Did you read it or listen to it?
Yeah, I'll listen to it.
Yeah. A fantastic audiobook experience.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If you haven't yet, he does a very good job. And I think this is somebody who really takes that idea of creating their own future, not doing things the way that you had to do them. Wow, that would be an honor.
Wow. The other day, I rewatched Interstellar right through, and his performance in that was incredible. So moving and powerful, Interstellar.
Yes, great movie, incredible movie.
Yeah, very ambitious. Nick, again, total pleasure today. Thank you for your time, very generous, and I loved your answers, really, really cool. And I hope to talk to you soon.
That's great. Thank you very much. It was great to meet you.